Good morning, YouTube. Today we are here at Alamo City Harley-Davidson here in the gorgeous San Antonio, Texas. And today we are riding the Heritage 114. For those of you who've been a fan of the channel, you know I really love these bikes. I love the way they look. They've got that old school, it looks like an old police bike, and I absolutely love it. So I'm very excited for this test ride. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about it. Of course, it does have the Milwaukee 8 114. This bike is putting out 119 foot-pounds of torque. They start at about $20,000, $300 for the black, and a little bit more for the color, the two-tone, and the anniversary edition. So let's go ahead and hop on the bike and see how it feels. Alright, so this bike weighs 730 pounds in running order, and I would say it probably feels like that. It definitely does not have that same weight as like a Road King or a Street Glide, Road Glide, but it definitely is heavier than, say for example, a Street Bob or a Sportster or something like that. Let's go ahead and start it up here. Of course, with the Milwaukee 8, you've got, no shaking in the mirrors, very smooth. Alright, actually let me go ahead and put it into gear here for you so you can see. No click, no jump, just a smooth click down into it. So before we get into the test ride, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself in case this is the first video that you're watching on this channel. My name is Justin. I run this channel called Bike in Bird. A little bit about myself. I have been riding pretty much my entire life. I grew up riding dirt bikes. I'm only 25 years old though, so I have only been officially licensed for the street for about 8 years. I've ridden everything from sport bikes, 1000cc sport bikes, to dirt bikes, to touring bikes, cruisers, Sportsters, Dynas. I currently own a 2017 Dyna Street Bob, as well as a 2014 883 Iron. Also, I want to let you guys know that even though this video is being produced with the help of Alamo City Harley-Davidson here in San Antonio, I have it in my contract that I am able to give my unbiased review. So this is not a paid advertisement, and you will get my completely unbiased opinion. Alright, so right off the bat, it's definitely smooth. I wouldn't say it's as smooth as the Street Bob though. The new 2018 Street Bob I felt was a little bit smoother on the acceleration. But overall, the thing I noticed right off the bat is this bike is comfortable. The seat is pretty much a smaller touring seat, so you've got plenty of support, plenty of cushion back there, and then along with the floating boards, the floating footboards, this bike is extremely comfortable. So yeah, it's weird. The Street Bob had the 107. This is the 114, so it might have to do with that. But I felt like the Street Bob was a lot smoother. But this is not, rough by any means. This is still very smooth. Definitely an improvement from the 103s. Alright, so I'm going to get on the interstate here. This review is not going to be all interstate, so if it gets loud and hard to hear, I apologize, but we will be getting off pretty soon. Alright, so the first thing I notice is that I'm not having to yell nearly as much as I was on some of the other bikes that don't have this windshield. This windshield is blocking a ton of wind, keeping a lot of stress off my body. I'm not getting thrown around nearly as much as I was on the other bikes. Also, I'm only in 4th gear. My God. So this bike, of course, does have the 6-gear transmission. It's got torque. It's got a lot of torque. All right, so we're about 75 miles an hour now. The wind definitely has increased, but still not getting beat up nearly as bad as I was on the other bikes I've ridden. So the handlebars are fairly wide. They also have got that wrist turn down that I am not personally a fan of. I don't know why they think people's arms are shaped like that. I know a lot of people like them. I personally do not like them. I'm more of an up and straight kind of guy, like T-bars or like a tracker bar or something like that. Wow, so you got plenty of torque even in 6th gear to get back up to speed, no problem. You do also have cruise control on this bike. So let me see if I can turn it on here. There it goes. Okay, that's pretty awesome. I've never had a digital cruise control in any of my bikes. I've had throttle locks, which is like a manual analog control, but it's nowhere near the capabilities that the digital one has. All right, it's a little hard to figure out at first, but I think once you figure it out, it's all good. Oh man, I could get used to this. This cruise control is awesome. And then of course, as soon as you tap the brakes, it does cut the cruise control off. The mirrors are actually really good. They're very useful. They're in a good spot. I can see completely behind me. Let's see what it's got in 6th gear. Sorry, 5th gear. No problem, man. It just gets up and goes. All right, so we're gonna hop off the interstate now. From here, I'm gonna take you guys on a little backcountry road. From there, we're gonna hop onto like a back highway, onto some more suburban streets, and then finally through a neighborhood. That way you guys can see how it performs throughout all the different riding environments. So you got your standard controls, left blinker, right blinker, cruise control set down here on your left thumb, and then you can cycle through your modes up here. Let's see how we are on the downshifting. Oh, very smooth downshift. So it's definitely smoother on the downshifting than it is on the upshifting, I believe. Let's see how the brakes are. Rear brake is very nice. Front brake is very nice. Both brakes are definitely nice. Low speed turning is very nice. The bike's very well balanced. A lot of the weight is down low in the motor, so it definitely turns very easily. So let's go ahead and cycle through some modes. It does have a gear indicator as well as a digital fuel gauge on this panel, which is nice. All right, so if we cycle through here, we've got your clock, RPM, as well as your range, odometer, or no, trip A, trip B, and then your odometer. I'm sorry, your range, and then your odometer. This bike has a 5-gallon tank, and the Milwaukee 8s are getting about 47 miles a gallon, so this bike can definitely do the distance. Also, just an update note, the seat still very comfortable. Let's see how she handles through this turn here. Oh, solid, very solid. The weight at speed is a lot more manageable than what you would assume 700 and something odd pounds would be. As you can see, I'm able to flick it side to side relatively easily. Oh yeah, it can get low for sure. Oh yeah, this bike could definitely be fun in the twisties. What's crazy is this bike has a 5-gallon tank, and it feels the same exact size as the Street Bob's 3.6 gallon tank. Maybe a little bit more wide in between the legs, but other than that, I mean, it doesn't feel huge at all. Alright, so right now we're on a very bumpy part of the road. I've taken my own personal bike down this road many a times, and this bike is handling it like a champ. This bike is almost, I wouldn't say it's quite up to touring comfort as far as the touring frame goes, but the suspension on this thing is awesome. I would say it's handling it about 90% as well as the touring bikes do. So yeah, very nimble, very, very nimble, especially for such a big bike. Again, very smooth acceleration, very smooth clutch. This bike does have the throttle by wire, which means it does not have any throttle cables. It's actually controlled by a sensor on the inside of the handlebars, but honestly you can't even tell. There's railroad tracks. Handle it like a champ. It does have the floorboards up on the forward controls, but it's still very easy to stand up when you need to. So let's take a second to talk about size. Now, a lot of people worry about, oh, is this bike going to be too big for me, too small for me? To give you some reference, I am 6'2", 240 pounds. I do have a 32-inch inseam though, so short legs, very long arms, long torso. just to kind of give you an idea. And I am extremely comfortable on this bike. Like I mentioned, the handlebars they feel a little close to me. I'd want to be a little bit more stretched out and possibly move back in the seat just a tad bit, but they make seats that you can achieve that with very easily. I can't remember the exact seat height. I want to say it's around 26 inches. I'll put the exact height here up on the screen. But I had no problem standing this bike up, but then again, I'm 6'2". I don't really have a hard time standing most bikes up, but it is a lot more narrow than I thought it was going to be. It's definitely not like a touring bike wide, so as long as that width is narrow enough for you, even if you do have shorter legs, I do believe that this bike could be stood up by a good percentage of the population. I could definitely see myself putting a lot of miles on this bike. I feel like it's a baby touring bike. You get a lot of the comforts and conveniences of the touring bike without the larger price tag. Like I said, this bike is only about 21 grand as opposed to, I don't know, 23, 24 starting off on the touring. Oh, that's not the right gear. So let's talk about the exhaust. Not much of a grunt, to be completely honest. It is not the loudest of the stock exhaust by far. But like I've mentioned in other videos, that companies are very limited to what they can do with the stock exhaust. So I'm not expecting a loud mean exhaust from any factory because of all the laws and regulations they have to follow. But it's not terrible. I would definitely upgrade it. But speaking of upgrades, one thing I like to do on my test rides is talk about what I would upgrade on the bikes if I were to buy it. My top 3 that I do within the first year or so. For this bike, I would have to say number 1 would be either exhaust or handlebars. Those would be 1 and 2. But like I said, handlebars are going to be 110% personal preference. A lot of people love these mini apes or these wide touring style bars. But for me, I just prefer something a little bit higher and straighter. But thankfully, with these higher bars that they already have on the bike, you can switch out to some higher T-bars or a tracker bar with very little modification. I mean, I don't think you'd have to extend any wires or cables. It'd be a simple, hour to 2 hour long job in your garage. Most people could do it by themselves. Downshifts are very, very smooth, super smooth. Does this have... No, it does not. I was seeing if it had the dual disc front brakes, but it looks like it only has it on the one. I wonder if these are... Is this a gas cap? Nope. That's a fake gas cap, and then this would be your real gas cap. I guess I did that just to kind of keep the look balanced there. Also, one thing I like to point out on these Milwaukee 8s is even sitting here at the stoplight, the heat off the motor is very minimal. I will say that the 114 does feel a tad bit hotter than the 107 I rode earlier on the Street Bob, but it is also about probably 10 degrees warmer outside temperature as well. But with the Milwaukee 8s, they are partially liquid cooled, so it's going to help keep down on that heat quite a bit. Alright, so now we're getting into a little bit more of a suburban area, a little bit more stop and go, stoplights, things like that. Just kind of see how it handles around this area, and then from there we're going to go into a neighborhood before finally wrapping it up here. So the torque is there. Like I mentioned earlier, you can feel the torque, but it's not jerky like some of the other bikes. I noticed with the Street Bob, it had a bunch of torque, but it was kind of jumpy. This one, I mean, it's a very smooth application of the torque, and this is a 114, so it's got even more torque than the 107 Street Bob had. Of course, we're also dealing with about 100 pounds more bike, but it's smooth, it's comfortable. So it fits into a lot of places that, say for example, a full dress bagger probably wouldn't. Oh yeah, super smooth at low speeds, very balanced. All right, so now we're into a neighborhood. I just want to point out that the seat is still extremely comfortable. It's probably the most comfortable seat that I've sat on so far of the Softail line, that is. So I'm right with my visor up now to kind of test this windshield at lower speeds. I'm getting, I would say, the perfect amount of air. It's comfortable enough to kind of keep you cooled down when you need to, but it blocks enough to where it keeps a lot of that fatigue off of your body. Oh, that's a stop sign. Oops. Good brakes. Oh, does this bike have the ABS on it? I don't think it does, because thought I heard tire squeal. Oh, it does have the ABS. Very nice. So for those of you who have never ridden with ABS, it's definitely a different feeling. I had the ABS on my Triumph Speed Triple, and it saved my ass a couple times. It's definitely getting used to. Definitely takes some getting used to, but once you are used to it, I have a lot of faith in that technology. So as far as the windshield goes, I really love that two-tone with the black on the bottom and the clear on top. I think that looks really good. I would really like to get a bigger one. If I were to buy this bike, I'd get a little bit taller just because I'm a taller guy. But I feel like the stock would be good for a good portion of the population. I will say that the 114 Heritage, it does have a lot more vibration in the bars than the 107 Street Bob, but both still have worlds less vibration than the 103. The Milwaukee 8 is definitely a better motor. I don't think anyone can argue that. So before we start wrapping up here, let's talk about who this bike is for. And I think this one's going to be pretty easy to pinpoint. Now, I have thoroughly enjoyed riding this bike. I would spend the money on this bike. At $21,000 though, I feel like it's going to be for a little bit more of an experienced rider, or maybe an older rider. Someone who is going to want to do the longer distances, but maybe is not ready for a full-on dress street glide, road glide, or something like that, because it is from the ultra classics and things like that, it's about 200 pounds lighter, so it's going to be a lot easier to maneuver around in parking lots and things like that. But it's also a lot more nimble, so it'll be better for the younger souls, maybe the people in like the 30, 40 year old range that still want to have a little bit of fun in the twisties, but also want to do the longer rides with their friends and things like that. Could this bike go cross country? Absolutely, especially with the right attachments and things like that. It comes with the soft saddlebags, which will probably hold a good amount of your stuff. Probably a sissy bar and a backpack or something like that. You could easily do cross country trips on this bike, easily. Out of the softails I've ridden so far, if I had to take one across country, this would be it, hands down. I feel like this bike really hits the mark as far as a good bike for a good range of people, because I can see a 25-year-old such as myself riding this bike. I can see a 55, 65-year-old guy riding this bike. I feel like it reaches a lot of demographics. I feel like the pros definitely outweigh the cons as far as this bike goes, and it's one of those bikes that you can buy from the dealer and just ride. I mean, you don't have to do anything. Like I said, the things I mentioned were just personal preference. You could buy this bike straight off the showroom floor and go hit and just crush some miles. Would I recommend this bike for a first bike? Probably, I'll say the same thing I say with when I get that question, no matter what the bike is. You're only going to get yourself in as much trouble as you allow yourself to. So if you're a more mature rider, not so much age-wise, but just, you don't, you treat the bike with respect and you treat the power with respect, I think you could start off on this bike. I might suggest the 107 as opposed to the 114, but even the 114 is not dangerously fast or dangerously powerful on this particular model. Like I said, I think it's going to really come down to maturity, but I would definitely suggest this as a first bike, maybe for someone a little bit older. Like I said, it's not going to be doing too much crazy stuff, but it just might not be ready for that 900-pound bagger just yet. All right, guys, I'm going to hop back up on the interstate and then meet you back at the dealership to give you my final thoughts. So one more thing I wanted to point out now that I'm on the interstate, not only am I not having to yell to hear myself due to the amount of wind that's being taken off my body from this windscreen, but it's actually such less wind, it's so quiet, I can actually still hear the engine noise on the interstate. I don't know how well the video is going to be picking it up, but I can clearly hear the little engine ticking away down there, even with me going 60 miles an hour here on the interstate. That's impressive. Alright, so my final thoughts on this bike. I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed riding this bike. I think it would be an awesome bike for someone to have that wants a little bit of the best of both worlds. You've got your agility for your fun, the twisties. You've got your comfort for the longer trips. You've got your storage. You've got your windscreen. You've got your power. It really is just an overall great package bike. And for 21 grand, I feel like that is a fair price for what you get with the quality and the features that you get. Also, the cruise control is awesome. That's probably one of my favorite features. I've never owned a bike with cruise control before, so I could really see myself really enjoying that cruise control. So as we pull up here back into Alamo City Harley-Davidson, I would just like to thank you guys for watching this video. If you've got any questions about this bike whatsoever, please do not hesitate to leave them down in the comments. If I can't answer it, I will ask someone who can answer it to answer it for me. If you do end up coming down here, if you're in the area, the San Antonio area, you do end up coming down here to Alamo City Harley-Davidson, let your salesman know that you heard about this bike or this dealership from this video. It helps them help me out. So, alright guys, so if you found this video helpful or informational in any shape or form, please go ahead and hit that like button. Also, if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm test riding a good portion of the 2018 Softail line, and I'm also going to be test riding the 2019 the day after they come out. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, that way you do not miss any of that action. Well guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.